The human disciple. There are moments when all that we have learnt, believed, and practiced seems to lead us to perplexity and confusion, and we find ourselves helpless and at a standstill. The norms and standards of conduct we have followed so far come into sharp conflict, and we no longer know what to do or how to act, even when we are aware that some action is necessary. These are moments of crisis, and in our state of helplessness, we are apt to give up the battle of life. Fortunate are they who at such a moment have a questioning and seeking mind and a teacher nearby to whom they can turn for advice, knowledge, and inspiration. At such moments, we realize that all life is unending education and that to receive it, we must develop the right attitude. A good pupil is a constant learner. One striking example of the acceptance of discipleship in the midst of a terrible crisis is the story of Arjuna at Kurukshetra that we find in the Mahabharata. This momentous episode provides the occasion for the teaching of the Gita, and its importance derives from the fact that Arjuna can be looked upon as a representative man. The crisis he faces could come upon anyone, for each human being has in him something of the same temperament, turn of thought, and balance of strength and weakness as Arjuna. To study Arjuna is to study ourselves. The human disciple Arjuna was fortunate, we might say, to have with him at the critical moment of his life the divine teacher Krishna, and we might wonder if very many of us would be so fortunate at the critical moments of life. In any case, the Gita assures us that Krishna, the divine teacher, is always near us to guide and teach, and that his help is unfailing. The figure of Krishna is the symbol of divine's dealing with humanity. Arjuna, as we know him in the Mahabharata, is the Rajasic man who governs his Rajasic actions by a high sattvic ideal. At the opening of the episode in the Gita, we find him advancing to the field of the gigantic struggle to Kurukshetra with the full acceptance of the joy of battle as to a holiday of fight. He has confidence in righteousness of his cause, believing that the sons of Dhritarashtra are unjust and wicked and that they should be destroyed in order to establish a reign of justice and good. He advances in his rapid chariot, driven by Krishna, tearing the hearts of his enemies with his victorious clamor of his war conch. He asks Krishna to set his chariot between the armies so that he can look upon the kings who had come there to champion the cause of unrighteousness and, disregarding law, justice, and truth, to establish the rule of selfish and arrogant egoism. But as he looks at them and as he sees on the other side his teachers, guardians, and brethren, he is inwardly defeated by the uprush of the tamasic quality. He recoils in horror, dismay, and dejection, his mind bewildered and his reason at war with itself. His being collapses towards the principle of ignorance and inertia. "I will not fight," he declares. Casting down his Gandiva, the divine bow and inexhaustible quiver, he cries out, "It is for my welfare that the sons of Dhritarashtra armed should slay me unarmed and unresisting." He argues that the path of renunciation is preferable to the terrible action of war. Krishna, the divine teacher, knows that Arjuna is experiencing the typical tamasic recoil from action of the sattvic rajasic man. He discourages this recoil and enjoins Arjuna to go on with the fierce and terrible action that confronts him. And he points the disciple towards an inner renunciation which will be the real solution to his crisis and the way towards the soul's calm, self-possessed action in the world. Not a physical asceticism, not escapism, but an inner ascesis is the teaching of the Gita. What Krishna impresses upon Arjuna is the necessity of the battle of life, and in Arjuna's case, at that point in time, his battle of life is the war of Kurukshetra. In this world of ignorance, where our ascent is through a forest of wild forces, we are required to accept the battlefield of Kurukshetra. In due course, however, we must move towards the replacement of physical force by soul force, of war by peace, of strife by union, of devouring of love, of egoism by universality, of death by immortality. While awaiting the day when that would be realized, ancient Indian civilization imposed conditions on the conduct of war so as to assure the minimum harm to the general life of the race. High ethical ideals and every possible rule of humanity and chivalry were exacted from the warrior. War of this kind and under these conditions is what the Gita envisaged. War is considered an inevitable part of life at a certain stage of human evolution, but even then is so restricted and regulated as to serve, like other activities, mankind's ethical and spiritual development. For this is regarded as the whole real object of life.